Spring is finally here. And you know what that means? That itch to get outside, clean up the yard, and finally tackle all those projects. But here's the thing. As we're out there getting to work, we're sharing that space with some very important and very, very vulnerable new neighbors. So today, we're going to dive into how we can make our yards a true safe haven for nesting birds.
Okay, so let's just jump right in with a really crucial question. Is your spring cleanup, which you're doing with the best intentions, of course, is it actually helping the local wildlife or could it be harming them? The tough reality is that a lot of our normal yard work, mowing the lawn, pruning some shrubs, power washing the deck, can actually pose this hidden but really serious threat. We can accidentally sabotage nesting birds without even knowing it, and right when they're at their most vulnerable. So, to figure out how to help, we first have to understand what I like to call the danger zone. It really is all about timing and just knowing when birds are most at risk. Okay, take a look at this timeline. You can see the peak nesting season for most birds is from April to July. But what's really important here are these two critical windows. The first one is right at the very beginning of incubation, those first few days. The second is right at the end, just before the young birds are ready to fledge or, fly for the first time. Any disturbance during these two windows can easily cause the parents to just abandon the nest entirely. And this is not a small issue. In fact, you might find this number pretty shocking. A huge review of this kind of stuff found that a staggering 88% of our outdoor activities, even quiet things like hiking, have negative impacts on birds. Everything from causing stress to outright reproductive failure. And the research is so clear on this. Even activities that we think are totally harmless create real, measurable stress in these birds, and that stress directly affects whether their chicks survive. So yeah, having a plan is pretty important. Which is exactly what we're going to talk about now. Let's get into a simple but really effective action plan to make your yard a whole lot safer for our feathered friends. All right, the single biggest, most impactful thing you can do is just get your timing right. Think of it this way. Get all the big, loud, disruptive stuff done before March really kicks in. So we're talking major pruning, power washing, any big construction. Get it wrapped up. Then, from March through July, just hit pause on anything that isn't absolutely essential. Now, what about mowing? I mean, we all have to do it, right? But it's one of the biggest threats to ground nesting birds. The solution is this simple three-step strategy. First, before you even start the mower, just take a walk around your lawn. If you happen to find a nest, mark it with a little flag or something from a safe distance. And then just create a little buffer zone, about 10 to 15 feet is perfect. And leave that patch untouched until the babies have flown the coop. Simple as that. And just to be super specific, here are some of those high disturbance projects that are really best to just save for August, once the main breeding season is pretty much over. The constant noise and activity from things like refinishing a deck or doing roof repairs, that can easily cause parent birds to give up on a nest. And, we've got to talk about pets. Our dogs and cats are a huge source of disturbance and, unfortunately, predation. The guidance here is really simple and direct. Keep your dogs on a leash, and this is a big one, keep your cats indoors, especially during this peak nesting season from March to July. But what if you find a nest and you're just dying of curiosity? I get it. If you feel like you have to check on it, just follow what Cornell's Nest Watch program calls the 1-minute rule. Keep your visit incredibly short. We're talking 60 seconds or less. It's a super simple rule that makes a huge difference in minimizing stress for the parents. But what if you don't actually see a nest? Well, here's the cool part. The birds will actually tell you if you're too close. You just have to learn how to speak their language. So birds have this whole vocabulary of alarm signals. You'll want to listen for sharp, repetitive chirps. This is very different from their normal musical songs. And you'll want to watch for visual cues too, puffed up feathers, agitated hopping back and forth, or even a bird flying right at you. These are all unmistakable signs that you are way too close for comfort. One of the most incredible and kind of dramatic examples of this is the killdeer. This bird will literally pretend it has a broken wing, dragging it along the ground to try and lure a threat, like you, away from its nest on the ground. It is an amazing act of parental defense. So if you see or hear any of these signals, your response should be immediate and super simple. Stop what you're doing, back away slowly and calmly, and then just make a mental note to avoid that specific spot for the next few weeks. And by taking these simple steps, you're doing so much more than just avoiding a problem. You are actively turning your yard from just a patch of grass into a true, functioning wildlife sanctuary. And this chart really shows the direct impact. When we cause a disturbance, even unintentionally, it often leads to nest abandonment and failure. But when we shift our mindset to one of active protection, look at that. Fledgling success goes way, way up. Your actions have a direct and really positive outcome.
So just remember this. What might feel like a minor inconvenience, waiting a few weeks to trim that hedge or paint the shed, it's actually a powerful and really meaningful act of conservation, and it's happening right in your own backyard. And the reward is it's incredible. I'm telling you, there is nothing quite like the experience of watching a little family of wrens or chickadees successfully fledge and start exploring your garden, all because you gave them the space and the safety they needed. So, I'll leave you with this question to mull over. Based on everything we've talked about, what is one small change you can make this week, right now, to help turn your yard into the safe haven our nesting birds so desperately need?